I was from the generation where your tidy house really mattered. Like when I look at my mother and my grandmothers, it was all about that's all about keeping up appearances and everything else. But in my mother line, in my ancestral work, I chose to release all of that. And I was married to a man who was very much like that as well. And I got divorced, number one. And number two, chose to completely release that because it wasn't my belief.
Yeah.
It wasn't my should. I don't care.
Welcome to the Goodbye Good Girl Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Casey Edwards, author of Goodbye Good Girl, Hello Me. If you've spent your life seeking approval from everyone except yourself, putting others' needs before your own, and staying silent to keep the peace, this podcast is for you. Whether you're 35 or 65, the question remains, when will you finally be enough? The answer is now. You belong here. Let's begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Goodbye Good Girl Club. I am just so delighted that you have chosen to spend 1 hour with me and with all the other fierce, intelligent, funny, and supportive women. This is our fourth club, and I will shortly introduce you to the extraordinary Megan Dalla-Camina. I am coming to you from Melbourne, Australia, where I am very fortunate to live on the beautiful lands of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I acknowledge the traditional custodians of these lands and pay my respects to the elders past and present, and to any First Nations people who are joining us. I want to thank you all for giving yourself, giving each other, and for giving Megan and me this time to fill our buckets and share space with smart, supportive, and inspiring women, and perhaps challenge some of our beliefs and go away with our hearts singing. As I say every time, joining this club is not just an act of self-love. It is actually an act of rebellion, because women in our society are rarely encouraged to do something wholly for themselves. Now, one woman who has inspired so many women, including myself, is the extraordinary Megan Dalla-Camina. She is a globally recognised leader in women's leadership, best-selling author and trusted guide for spiritual growth and feminine wisdom. She's the founder of Women Rising, a global movement and platform redefining how women lead, live, and thrive. And she is the author of the best-selling book, I have it here, highly recommended, Women Rising. We'll be talking a little bit about that later on, but it is such a fantastic read. She's also written Simple, Soulful, Sacred, and is a PhD researcher in women's spirituality. So Megan weaves together evidence-based tools, sacred wisdom teachings, and her own deeply rooted spiritual practice.
Hi, Casey. Hi, everybody. So excited.
Great, because I've got some cracking questions. Some I have written myself, and others that thank you to the people who have pre-submitted your questions. They are great. Megan, I would like to say to you that your research is phenomenal. I love the way that you give very practical strategies to help women reclaim their power. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. But first of all, I want to talk about something else that you do that is just such a breath of fresh air, is that you say the quiet bit out loud. So the struggles that women have in the workplace, sometimes in our homes and in society generally, are not because we're all just a bit crap and we need to do more power posing, right? There isn't. No. We face patriarchy. Now, just if anyone's eyes glazed over when I said the word patriarchy, please stick with us, because if we want to get rid of our good girls, we really have to understand what patriarchy is and how to navigate it. And Megan is just the person to tell us about that. So that's my first question, Megan. Solve the patriarchy. No.
What is it? Well, I don't think we're going to solve it here tonight, but we might put a little crack in it. So Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. Like, I love chatting with you, and I'm so glad we get to do it in community. So patriarchy is something that I spent a long time trying to figure out. And it was something that when I was in my corporate career, which is 13 years ago now, but I spent 18 years in corporate, there was always something in all of the work that we were doing around gender diversity and trying to get more women into leadership and, all of the things that we all fight so hard for. There was always something bubbling under the surface that I could never quite put my finger on. And for the last sort of 5 to 7 years of my corporate career, I realized that it was this thing that we never, ever spoke about in the halls of power, this word called patriarchy. And unless we name it, we can never fix it. And so I used to say it very quietly, and start talking about it. But when I reference patriarchy, what I'm really talking about is systems that were built by and for men to succeed in. And let's be really clear right at the front, it's not men's fault. We're not blaming the men. We're not shaming the men. We're not outcasting the men. It's not a militant movement when we talk about patriarchy, but it is completely acknowledging that the systems that we women operate in every day are systems that were not designed with us in mind. And it is one of the reasons why we always feel like we don't quite fit in, or we're the problem, or we need to fix ourselves or shape ourselves so that we can succeed in these patriarchal systems.
Yes.
So that's what I'm referring to and what I write about and teach in Women Rising about patriarchy. And I think what I've found for so many women is, and for so many men, by the way, that kind of lifts the veil a little bit of, it's not so scary when we look at it like that. And we can have an inclusive conversation about it because we're not blaming and shaming the men for creating it. We all need to come together to fix it.
Yeah, because patriarchy doesn't work for most men either.
Exactly.
So it isn't an attack on men. It is their structures that aren't working for us anymore.
Yes. And that keep all of us, all genders, no matter what gender, but particularly for men and for women, keep us very firmly controlled in the box of gender normative behaviour. And it certainly doesn't help women. And yes, for the vast majority of men, doesn't serve them either, because they want to break out of their gender norms as well.
And how does patriarchy feed into this idea that we're not good enough, that we're failing?
Because that's what it teaches us as women. All of that conditioning, all of that socialization, all of those messages that not all women, like not everyone's going to relate to this. Not everyone is awake to this either. But for so many women, we have grown up with the messages that we're not good enough, that we don't fit, that we don't belong. And the outer patriarchy becomes our inner patriarchy, becomes that inner critic voice in our head that's constantly telling us, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I just don't belong here. Mm-hmm. It's not by accident. It's what we have been taught about ourselves.
So I love that you've moved on to the inner critic, because so Megan's book, it talks about the structural problems that we're up against, the paradoxes of power. But then there's the bit that so these are bigger problems that we can't solve individually, right? Then you talk about the inner critic, which is the stories that we tell ourselves that we can learn to not tell.
Yes.
So tell us about the inner critic.
Yeah, well said. So, what I write about are the forces outside of us that hold women back, patriarchy, power, exactly as you've just said. And then there are the forces inside of us and the stories inside of us that keep us stuck. And this is, the inner critic, what feeds the inner critic is how we internalize the patriarchy, how we internalize all of those external messages and external conditioning into our own inner voice and our own inner narrative. And like what I'm really passionate about teaching women is, number one, understand the forces, like understand all of this structural stuff over here And then start to get really intimate with your inner critic, with your inner dialogue, with the narrative that's constantly going on inside your mind, and learn how to turn that inner critic into inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I go through and what I've identified are 13 typical inner critic archetypes. Like if we look at, excuse me, all of the research, all of the tens of thousands of women that I've supported, there are 13 inner critic archetypes that so many of us can relate to. The perfectionist, the people pleaser, the good girl, obviously, the ideal mother, the empath, the overachiever. There's 13 of them. And that's what we want to become really familiar with and learn the tools so that we can start to quieten down those narratives that don't serve us and that stop us from living the lives we want to live, having the careers we want to have, and everything else that comes with it.
So in your workbook, everybody, page 3 is a list of Megan's 13 inner critic archetypes. And if you don't know who your critic is, there is a quiz that you can do, and there is a link and a QR code. So later on, you can do that quiz to get to know your inner critic. And it's actually really useful to do because I found it was able to help me separate the critic from me. It takes on its own persona.
Yes.
And this will be a surprise to absolutely no one that my inner critic is the good girl. And that's what we're here to talk about, month after month is how do we change, dampen the voice of the good girl? How do we change the rules that we follow that are dictated to us to be good girls? And so I've actually Megan has questions that help you identify what your inner critic is. And I want to read the good girl ones. See if anyone else here identifies. Number 1, do you prioritize others' expectations over your own? Anyone? Number 2, does the fear of disappointing people influence your choices and actions? Are you driven by a need to conform to societal standards even at your expense? I saw someone mention before that it's exhausting and they're so tired. I think that's a really good example of that we're constantly meeting other people's expectations at our own expense. Do you feel trapped by the pressure to be obedient and accommodating? And do you fear being rejected or disapproved of if you use your voice? I suspect quite a lot of people, it would be a yes, 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 and yes. So, Megan, what do we do when there's 5 yeses coming from us? Where do we start?
Yeah, look, I mean, the way I describe the good girl archetype is the true daughter of the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So the good girl is like everything that, people, I'm seeing all the yeses. This is where we have been so conditioned and socialized to always put other people's needs ahead of our own, to, we never want to disappoint anybody. We always want to please. There's often a really lovely blend of the people pleaser that sits inside the good girl archetype, which is another one of the archetypes. So the first thing that we want to do is start to recognize this archetype within ourselves. And for everyone who's put yes or who's thinking about this, you'll get your workbook, and I would really love everyone to sit with the questions and to write down examples. So, for the first one, do you prioritize others' expectations over your own? Where does that happen in your life? Where does it happen in your career, in your home, with your partner if you have one, with your kids, with your best friend? Where does this show up? Where are all of the places where you are prioritizing other people? And get as specific as you can. Because what happens with our inner critic, and this is particularly true for the good girl, is that so often we're just asleep to it. It's so cultivated within us. It's so embedded in our psyche. We're not even aware that this is what's going on, that this is the voice inside our head that's driving our behavior. So the more specificity we can get And I would encourage everyone, like, carry a notebook or open a specific notes app on your phone and put good girl behaviors at the top of it and catch them when they're happening or just after they've happened, when you realize that you just said yes to something that you really wanted to say no to, and start to bring your attention to this. And it's even in the small things with the good girl. You know, you want to go to lunch at a certain place, someone else wants to go somewhere to a different place, and you just automatically agree. You know, like really small micro examples, as well as really big things. You know, good girl behaviors can be as large as the career that you're in, the person that you married, the way that you parent, what your faith is. Like, all of these big macro decisions, as well as the small micro decisions, show up in our good girl behavior once we are really conscious to what these patterns look like and what this narrative is that's driving our behaviors.
Once I became aware of my good girl beliefs and my good girl behaviors, I had this really shocking realization that what was driving a lot of my good girl behaviors was my fear of tolerating the discomfort of disappointing someone.
Yes.
That it's a feeling in me that I was too scared to feel.
Yes.
And that my growth was, well, first of all, I empowered myself by thinking I actually have a choice here. I can choose to face up to this discomfort and sit with it and deal with that. Or I can choose to be the good girl and feel resentful afterwards. Like, I actually do have a choice here. And then once I chose to be more authentic, then the work that I needed to do was to be okay with that discomfort.
I'm so glad that you said that. It's such an important call out, because this getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, learning to sit in the discomfort that we feel, again, particularly for good girls, also for people pleasers, is such an important part of the awakening that we have. Because if we're not going to get comfortable being uncomfortable, it's very hard, right, to start to rewire these narratives, and underneath that, the beliefs that we have about ourselves, right? Because if we don't realize that we have a belief that we're a good girl, that that's our archetype, then we don't believe that we have a choice.
That's right.
It's like, this is just the way I am. This is just the way it is. And we settle in and get really comfortable in that, even though we're not living up to our true potential. We're not living our most authentic lives. We're not in alignment with ourselves. But it can be very uncomfortable to start to, unravel that pattern of behavior.
Yeah. I think also someone said, Rebecca here said, the discomfort is really hard.
Really hard.
One of the reasons it's so hard is because when we were young, in my case, and I think a lot of other people, is we weren't allowed to displease people.
Yeah.
Our actual survival in the family and our sense of feeling loved and accepted depended on us being good girls. So we're so fearful that if that discomfort is actually not being loved and accepted anymore. And so that's work that I had to do, that as an adult, I then get to choose my own decisions, and that I'm worth more than other people's perceptions of how I serve and meet their expectations.
Yeah, again, this is really important conversation, right? Because, our reptilian brain, which is really tied to our emotions, is about safety.
Mm-hmm.
And safety is about being part of the group and not being cast out. And I believe that we have so much body memory and memory in our DNA of ancestors and ancestors and ancestors of what would happen if we did get cast out. And that would often mean death.
Yeah.
And we also have the, embodiment as women of what happened when we spoke out, when we went against the grain, when we were rebels, when we did dissent, and what happened? Death,
Yeah.
right? In so many cases.
Yeah.
So, like, it takes so much courage to give yourself permission to even sit in that discomfort, to even enter into the discomfort. Takes a lot of courage. And I think we skim over that in our, 10 steps to X, Y, and Z, that this is actually a heroine's journey. It's not a quick, just do this and you'll be fine. We have to go through the process. And part of that is like wading through the weeds of how uncomfortable it is to create any kind of change, but especially this really wired into us change.
But there are rewards on the other side. Like for me personally, one of my good girl beliefs was that if I wasn't a good girl in my friendships, people wouldn't like me and I wouldn't have friends. Yeah. And that was I really had that idea challenged when I went to a children's friendship skills workshop. And the teacher was telling the 7-year-olds that friendship can only occur between two people who are being themselves. And I thought, oh my God, no one ever sees me being myself.
Yes.
So whatever relationship I was trying to form with people, it wasn't friendship. So actually being a good girl stops you from having the friendship that you're trying so hard to achieve. And so for me, being authentic, like me losing my good girl, it's a daily practice.
Yeah.
But I have the most beautiful friends now who see me for me and like me anyway, right?
Yes. And one of the questions that I think is really important for us all to think about is like, what is the cost of your inauthenticity?
Mm-hmm.
What is the cost of that? Because our inauthenticity can cost us everything. The friends that we could have, the partner that we really want, the career that we really want to have, everything. So, like, that's the other side of the discomfort argument. Yes. You may not want to get uncomfortable, but at what cost do you sit in the same place that you've always been, without creating that change?
And no one else is going to change it for us, are they?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Has to be.
Unfortunately. But you can do it in small steps, right? Like, I think often we think about change and discomfort and all of these things as, like it's this massive, big undertaking. But science would tell us, and I believe in what I see in all of my work, is that it's the micro changes, the small steps, it's the clawing things back, it's the little no's versus just the big hell no that can really make such a difference for us in stepping into and becoming the person that we know that we are, but that we have to grow into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's a skill, isn't it? It's a skill that we need to develop, which, step by step, day by day. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And no is a muscle. And a big part of the good girl is learning how to say no. And we hear that all of the time, but it is deeply true, because the people pleaser and the good girl, like, they're two archetypes, but they so compound each other, that and setting boundaries. One of the core skills of the good girl and the people pleaser, by the way, is, what is it that I really want? And how many women, like, in our Women Rising program, in the last 4 years, we've had 10,000 women, 63 countries. So it's very diverse, all ages, all stages, all cultures. And the vast majority of those women don't know what it is that they want for their lives, for their careers, across the board. And that's the first question I would encourage everybody to really ask yourselves, like, what is it that I want for myself? Because when we can anchor and ground ourselves into that knowing as to, this is what I want, this is what my vision looks like, these are the pieces, these are my goals, these are my values in this season of my life, not 10 years ago, right now, for the season that you're in, then these behaviors, these no's, these boundaries become much easier to start to put into place. But when we don't know, we're just at the whim of everybody else and what everybody else wants for us.
Yep. Before we continue, I want to tell you about something that might help you on your own journey. If today's conversation is resonating with you, you might want to check out my book, Goodbye Good Girl, Hello Me. It's my personal story of recognizing and challenging the beliefs that kept me seeking everyone else's approval instead of trusting myself. Think of it as a roadmap to the person you were always meant to be. And if you're a parent, grandparent, carer, or teacher who wants to protect your children from inheriting these damaging beliefs, I've also written Raising Girls Who Like Themselves and Bringing Up Boys Who Like Themselves, both bestsellers that show you how to raise kids who value themselves from the inside out. You can find all these books at caseyedwards.com, and if you use the code podcast at checkout, you'll get $10 off your order. Absolutely everything we hope and dream for ourselves and for our children in our lives become easier when we like ourselves. Now, back to our conversation. And it can take time to get the answer to that question.
Yes.
And so
yes.
I at this moment in my 30s when I realized that I had not made a decision for myself since I was in high school and picked my subjects. And even then, I was heavily influenced by what was expected of me. I then went on to the course that was expected of me, and I got the job, and then the next job, and the next job. And I was in my 30s, and I was so buried deep under other people's expectations, the life that I'd lived by ticking other people's boxes.
Yes.
That I didn't know what boxes I wanted for me. And I set about trying to find what I actually wanted, my true meaning and purpose. And it took me a whole year to work out what it was. And that's when I switched from being a management consultant to an author. But I'd forgotten. And this leads me on to my favorite quote from your work, Megan. The essence and purpose of our lives as women is not to become, it is to remember. And it took me a year to remember who I was. Tell us more about that process of remembering.
Oh, I love this. I love that you've touched on this. It's actually what my entire next book is about, that I'm working on at the moment, is about the remembrance. We're always trying to become something else. We're always trying to, chase the next thing and get to the next point. And everything that we do so often, particularly as women, is become what, and if you relate to the good girl, become what somebody else wants me to be. Yeah, in my career, as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, what does society want for me, and how do I become the best version of that? But I really believe that we know, we have that knowing inside of us. We know what our true self is. And that is part of the remembrance work that we all get to do, should we choose to, is to remember who we are, not become who other people want us to be. And this is why I'm such a big proponent of some form of practice, whatever works for people, but often it won't work at the beginning. You have to do it. Meditation, mindfulness, quiet practice, so that we give ourselves the space to tune in to what we know versus what other people tell us about ourselves. That's remembering.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you want to remember, the first step is to start that process, isn't it?
Yeah, we have to, just if everyone just thinks how busy you were today and how busy you were yesterday and how busy you were on the weekend And how much space do you naturally have for self-reflection, even reflecting on these questions,
Yes.
that are in the workbook? Like, you may have glanced at them, but how many people actually, had any time to sit down and go, oh, okay, let me spend 5 minutes and think about and really reflect and tune in on this? Probably very few, because we're just busy all of the time. And a big part of this work, the inner work, is giving yourself that space and that time to go inward. The good girl is all about what's external and where am I getting my validation that I'm good enough. But the real work and the thing that's going to unlock this is, what do I want? Who am I? And to really unlock that, we have to have space and we have to have silence, and we have to be brave enough to ask the questions.
And often the answer to what do I want is not having it all, which is something that I've heard you write and speak about before, this idea that a successful woman has to have it all, right? And it was interesting when I heard you say that, and I went away and thought about, well, what's my definition of success and a successful life?
Yeah.
And one of those things that I thought that I should do to be a successful woman was to have a clean house. And then I thought, well, do I actually want that?
Yeah.
Like some people, they love really clean, tidy spaces. And if that works for them, then it's worth putting in the 10 hours a week to do that, right? But for me, I was doing it as a should, because I thought that I should have to do that. And then I added up all the hours of my life I was shoulding.
Yes.
Having this tidy house, and decided that that's actually not what I want. What I want is to spend my time doing something else that makes my heart sing. And so now I consciously do not spend my time doing unnecessary domestic work.
Yes. Oh, look, I come to my house. I mean, my house, yes, it's clean, sure as hell not tidy. But again, like, I write in the book around shoulds, musts, and have tos. Like, what are the rules that you are placing on yourself? And most of them come from external. Again, they come from how we've been socialized, how we've been conditioned, what people have told us our life and our behavior should look like. But as you're reflecting, reflect on how many of those shoulds are yours.
Yes.
And how many of those shoulds, and keep a should list. And every time you catch yourself, oh, I should, write it down.
Yeah.
And then spend 10 minutes going through that list at the end of, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Which of these shoulds are mine? Which of these shoulds are somebody else's? And which ones do you want to keep? Which ones are you happy to release? And so I'm going to release that should. And some of them might be challenging because they might be deeply ingrained and deeply in your wiring or in your cultural beliefs or in how you've been raised. But you have a choice. You have a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just on the should of domestic work, if you find yourself cleaning up when someone's coming around, then the question I asked myself was, who am I cleaning up for?
Yes.
That's my good girl, right? Oh, yes. I need a clean house. Someone's coming.
That's your good girl.
Yeah. So it was not a standard that I was content with. I had to lift that standard because someone else was coming and they might think something about me.
Yes. And that what people think about me, that's another one to get under the surface of, right? Whom do you care about what they think about you? Does it really matter?
Yeah.
That's a big part of the good girl, wiring as well, that we're so wired in to what other people think about us. What I would love everyone to be more concerned with is, what do you think about you?
Yes.
Because when we're happy with what we think about ourselves, we don't care. Right? And my house as well. If you come over to my house and I invite you into my house, a very small group of people, but you first of all, and number one, I don't care what you think about my house because this is my house. And I know that you love me anyway, even if I've got dirty dishes in my sink. Do you know what I mean? So, like, all of these pieces fit together. Like, how do we lower our standards a little bit,
Yeah.
so that we
I
can.
think, if we could just create a pact with everyone here tonight, never judge a woman by her housekeeping, right? Because that is one of the forces
Preach.
of patriarchy that actually keep us all tired and busy, right?
Yeah, it's not 1955.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, like, and would sit around going, oh, someone's coming over. They're going to teach me for the dust, like it's
Don't care.
email thing that it takes up our headspace and our time.
Yes. So many of us were from the generation, well, certainly I was from the generation where your tidy house really mattered. Like when I look at my mother and my grandmothers, it was all about that. It's all about keeping up appearances and everything else. But in my mother line, in my ancestral work, I chose to release all of that, because I even got, and I was married to a man who was very much like that as well. And I got divorced, number one. And number two, chose to completely release that because it wasn't my belief.
Yeah.
It wasn't my should. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so interesting, right?
And time is our most precious resource, and we can only spend it once.
Yes.
But that time you're doing cleaning to meet someone else's expectations is time you're not spending on something that you want.
Yeah. I'd rather be doing my PhD research than folding the laundry, So I fold my laundry. Don't everybody worry. But do you know what I mean? Like, where do you want to spend your time? What is your vision for your life? Yeah. What makes you feel fulfilled? And let's start to disconnect from other people's expectations of us.
There's lots of comments about mothers, nonnas,
yes,
parents. Yeah, like you said,
this is where we get it from,
women
right?
are doing it to other women, and it's like, no, it stops tonight, everyone.
And the perfectionist. Yes, Rebecca, that's another one of the inner critic archetypes. It is hard to let go, right? But it's about recreating your own standards. Set your own standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then work on tolerating the discomfort of your mother not being happy with your housekeeping. Because
yes.
She can
and what else would you like to be doing? So Sophia spent time writing her book today instead of deep cleaning. Decided tidy was good enough.
Yeah.
Love that, right? What else? And you may be one of these people who loves a clean, tidy, everything spotless. Have at it.
Yes, exactly.
As long as it's your choice, right? As long as it's your choice.
Yep, for sure. I have so many more questions, but we've run out of time. So we're going to jump to the questions that people have sent through. But before we do that, Megan, please tell us about the wonderful Women Rising.
Oh, well, I mean, we've spoken so much about the book already. So Women Rising is the company which is really built around our signature program, our 4-month signature. It's a live virtual coaching development program that we run twice a year, September and March. It's amazing. I saw one of our alumni is on here actually, which I love. And we really go through everything from setting your life vision and purpose through all of confidence and career and well-being, all the pieces. So we do that. We do a male allies program to support men stepping up beside women to create change. And then, of course, the book, which came out last year, which is literally my life's work in this book.
And an Amazon bestseller.
Yes, it was. It's been beautifully received, so it makes me so happy. And yeah, like the forces that hold us back, their stories, the inner critic work that we need to do, and then what are the tools? Like the third section is all about the really practical tools to create the career and life that we want for ourselves. So everything we've spoken about: life vision, meaning, purpose, defining success on our own terms, authentic leadership, well-being, all of the pieces that fit together.
Here's the question from Laura. I love this conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. We love that you're here and that you're asking questions. As women who say we support each other, can you speak to how we can show up better for those who are on the journey of rising up? I sometimes doubt that we are fully comfortable celebrating women who have risen up because we ourselves feel left behind.
Oh, that's such a good question. It's one of my favorite topics. Yeah, look, I mean, there's a couple of things, like just really really simple, practical things. Where are you celebrating other women? Where are you uplifting other women? Where are you amplifying other women's voices? And so that's the first thing. And just for all of us to look for, where are we doing that in our own lives? Where are we doing that at work? Where are we doing that in our communities? And to do it knowing that when another woman rises or sparkles or shines, it doesn't take away from our sparkle and shine. And that sounds really trite, but it is deeply embedded in our patriarchal conditioning that there is room for one.
Yep.
There's one woman on the board, there's one woman on there's one woman on that, and if she's there, you can't be. And part of this work of really helping women support women, not just as an Instagram, meme, but as a real thing, is us all deconditioning the belief that there's only space for one woman and that actually there's space for all women. And that is a key patriarchal deconditioning that we need to do. And so, I'm just always looking for, where can I say something positive about another woman? Where can I really highlight her or amplify her? How can you will never ever catch me saying anything negative about any woman anywhere, right? And that's a values choice that I've made. So what are the values choices that you're making about how you engage with other women? I think these are all really important conversations.
And it can be really hard because one of the good girl rules that I had to really challenge in myself, and I still do because it's so deeply embedded in me and it's so deeply embedded in our society, is that I'm only good enough if I'm better than her.
Yes.
And we learn that belief as babies. Who's the prettiest baby? Yeah. And then we grow up and we learn it from Cinderella, who got the prince because she was prettier and did more unpaid labor than her ugly sisters, right? And then we grow up and there's who wore it best. And then we compete over men. And then we have reality TV shows. Like, it is everywhere in our culture.
Everywhere.
Women have to tear each other down.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
For me, it is absolutely an act of rebellion to catch myself and not do it. And we have a rule in our household. I teach my girls this rule, and it comes up quite frequently, is that we never, ever criticize another woman's appearance. Yes. Because that is the fastest way that we tear another woman down. We discredit her. She looks whatever, therefore she's worthless. Yeah. And when we do that, we are scoring points against ourselves. And so that's just a really simple thing. Another pact tonight: never criticize another woman's appearance.
Yeah. And, when we look at the inner critic, right, and how this shows up for us, another one of the inner critic archetypes is the comparer.
Right.
And it is this constantly benchmarking ourselves against other people, particularly other women. So that's another one for everyone to look at. Like, when you do your quiz, if you're reading the book, go and look at the comparer archetype if this has really sparked something for you. And there's specific strategies in there for how we start to sort of, claw that back for ourselves, and strategies to help work through that.
Because it's absolutely a recipe for insecurity, isn't it?
And look, another one is the beauty queen, right? We could talk about those two things all night as well, and social media and how this just continually cultivates, and the Kardashians and, reality TV and all of the rest of it, how that just feeds this theme. Yeah. I won't go on because
one woman doesn't destroy the patriarchy. One woman doesn't break through the glass ceiling. Like we got the vote because we linked arms and we did it together. We got reproductive rights the same way. And if we want to really make changes for the lives of women, we can't be tearing each other down.
Yeah.
We have to be doing it together.
Yeah. And we thrive in community. Like we really see this in the Women Rising program community. We have like 1,000 women per cohort. And the way that women exhale when they come together in community and actually see each other and go, oh, it's not just me, it's you too. It's both of us, it's all of us. And we can actually go on this journey together, changes everything. But it's not what we're taught. So we have to absolutely be the rebels to break the chains of that.
Yes. And to see another woman's success as inspiration.
Absolutely.
Something that's possible.
Absolutely.
Rather than a threat.
Yeah. She did it, I can too, versus she did it, so that means something bad about me.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a big conversation.
Okay, here's another one. My partner says he supports my career, but I still carry the mental load and do most of the domestic work. How do I shift this dynamic without starting a war? Great question.
Great question. So the first thing that I would say is to ask yourself, how did the agreements in your relationship get set up? Right? Like, what are the contracts that you have both agreed to that mean that you do most of the domestic work?
Mm-hmm.
And what are your inner critic narratives around why you do that, why you take on the lion's share? And to really understand that, like what's going on for you when you're doing the 10th thing and he's doing the one thing, and right, understand that. And then how do you start to open up the lines of communication, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that invites discussion. Like, I love it how you're so supportive of my career, but I still find myself doing the lion's share of the housework. What do you think about that? Like, inviting in conversation rather than I'm always, right? That's the way not to have a war, but to get the conversation on the table. One way. There's many other ways. One way. And it's about where are the tasks, who's doing what, and then where are the boundaries around that? Because you may start to reset and reassign, but then you still may not set a boundary that he said he's going to do that, but then you find yourself doing it. And that's a boundary, right, that you need to set for yourself. So there's a few pieces in that, but like it doesn't need to be, it may end up being a war, let's be very clear, right? It may absolutely end up being a war. And that's a decision for you to take of how much am I willing to compromise before I get to a place where I'm like, I'm willing to go to war over this because this is not working for me anymore. And what does that even mean? But before that, there's 50 steps that you can take before you have to get into a war to get him to meet you halfway.
I'm just thinking, last month, Kemi Neck-for-Pill was on talking about the gift of asking. And she said that sometimes you've already got your answer. That if you have asked and you've tried all the strategies and nothing's changed, then it's not your asking technique. Sometimes you've already got your answer.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, I think that's true. I always come back to that. I mean, that's a really good point. And what boundaries have you set in place for yourself? What are your non-negotiables in this relationship about things like the chores that have to happen at home? And what are the boundaries that you are not willing to have crossed? Yeah. If you've done the asking, things haven't happened, where are the boundaries that you're going to set? Where are your non-negotiables and how are you going to communicate those? and then hold that line. Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes we have a choice.
And then you have choices all along the way.
All have a choice. Even though they can be really difficult choices.
Yes, they can be. Yeah.
But it's such a tricky one, and it's
so hard.
And, you know, the saying that the seeds of equality are planted in the home is so true. It's really hard for a woman to succeed at work if she does not have equality at home.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's real. I've had this conversation with literally thousands of women.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's super challenging. But knowing what you want, knowing what's right, knowing the boundaries and non-negotiables that you have, and having those hard conversations is all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And good luck, because it's really challenging.
It is. Yeah. There's no easy answer to that one, is there?
There's no easy answers to most of it, unfortunately, but that's why we're having such great discussions.
Yes, that's right. I just want to read out, it's almost time to go, but I want to read out a comment from Zoe, because I love it that she's listening in the car, picking up her son from work, and normally she would turn this off because he doesn't want to listen, but she decided to keep listening because to what she wants this time. So shout out to Zoe.
Well done, Zoe.
Zoe's son.
It's really good for boys. I've got a 24-year-old, right? It's really good for boys to hear these conversations, right? It is, it's really good and important. And to have these conversations with your son. We always talk about how we want to raise our daughters. Mm-hmm. The change is going to come, of course, from that, but in equal amounts for how we raise our sons and the conversations we have with our sons. So well done, Zoe. I love that your son is listening to this.
Yeah, because it's not just good for the son's partners and the world in general. It's good for the sons.
Good for them. Absolutely.
They understand the female experience.
Yes.
They will have a better relationship with half the population.
Yes, absolutely. My son's downstairs cooking dinner for his girlfriend, which I love. Yeah.
Zoe's son's laughing. Good on you, mate. Invite your friends along.
Be the male ally. I love it.
So it's almost time to go. I'd just like to finish with the question I always finish with, Megan. If you could go back and whisper something into the ear of your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
That's funny. The first thing that comes to mind is keep writing.
Right. Okay.
Because I stopped writing for decades. Mm-hmm. And I found myself again through my writing. So, yeah, that's the first thing that I would say. And I would also say trust yourself, because you know the answers. You know. Trust your feminine wisdom.
Way back.
Yeah.
Buried underneath all of those years of conditioning and
experience. It's all there. It's all there. Yeah.
That's a beautiful place to finish. Thank you so much for joining us. Megan, thank you. It's been such a delight. We are so lucky to have you. Everyone go and check out Megan's work. You won't be sorry, and you're welcome.
Thank you. Loved every minute. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Goodbye Good Girl Club today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your words help other women find this community, women who, just like you, deserve so much more than they've been settling for. And please share this podcast with the women in your life who need to hear these conversations. Send it to your sister, your mom, your best friend, your colleague, anyone who's been putting everyone else first for far too long. If you want a roadmap to saying goodbye to your own good girl, you can grab a copy of my book, Goodbye Good Girl, Hello Me, at caseyedwards.com. Use the code PODCAST for $10 off this book or my parenting books, Raising Girls Who Like Themselves and Bringing Up Boys Who Like Themselves. Until next time, you don't need to earn your worth. You just have to remember it. This is the Goodbye Good Girl Club. I'm Casey Edwards. Thank you for being here.